Started. Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Will. This is Success Saturday, day 2. This will be an ongoing thing. It's part of the butterfly experiment. And what the butterfly experiment was, of course, is because we were put in lockdown due to the health thing, many people compared it to being in a cocoon. We were locked down. We couldn't do what we normally did. And people talked about things like metamorphosis, how you change, and all of that. And I always stress, and I keep going over that everyone forgets when that caterpillar goes inside that cocoon, it totally melts down, almost to its very to its very DNA, and restructures a new digestive system, a new muscular system. It has to change. It's not just poof and it comes out. And we always stress, or I always stress, and a lot of the motivational speakers that use that story sort of forget to stress that when you first come out of a cocoon, or when a butterfly first comes out of a cocoon, it is at its most vulnerable. It needs all the help that it can get to just survive, right? Or basically it needs to be left alone, because again, you will, if you try to help it, it'll cause it to die. It takes whatever it takes for the butterfly for it to dry, and the butterfly or the moth to do that. So it's very vulnerable. So I would say, as we're coming out of these lockdowns here in the States, I know other parts of the world are starting to come out, or have come out, or they might be experiencing things. It's coming out is when you have to work at it. Because again, I always stress, if you went into your cocoon, a caterpillar, and you want to come out a butterfly, once you come out, you can't hang around with caterpillars anymore. You're a butterfly now. You can't eat caterpillar food, do caterpillar things. You have to change. So that's what this is about. If we want to use this period to reinvent ourselves, if you will, to become the butterfly, to have a true metamorphosis, let's talk about that. So today we're continuing the Success Saturday. But I want you to review, if you were here last week, it's up there. If not, what did you learn last week that might have been a little bit different? And I'd like you to begin to think about how you can apply this new information in different ways. Last time we talked about a primary block, the crime of existence, the crime of being, and we talked a little bit about, do you use it as your coping mechanism? But I want you to ask, what can I learn new today? Is there something here that maybe you've learned before, but it's going to be different? But if you set your reticular activating system, which was coming up in a couple of Saturdays, by asking questions, what can I learn new today? Or how can I apply this in a new way? How can I grow today? It sets your reticular activating system. So kind of put that on the front burner. And again, if you want to contact me, my main website right now still is NFNLP. Also, Dr. Will Horton is being redone. I'm excited about that. I'm on Twitter, Dr. Will at RealNLP, Instagram, Dr. Will Horton. I always forget the Facebook one, but I'm on Facebook, where I know a lot of you. My other website is AASolved, alladdictionsolved.com. And as I said, NFNLP.com. So last week, we talked about the crime of being, of the crime of existence, and what that manifests itself as. If you're looking for success, if you have this as a deep underlying thing, you get into that, you're not good enough. Nothing I ever do is good enough. Nothing. And if you do something good and everybody gives you a compliment, you automatically go, but I could have done this better. I could have done that better. I could have, so if you have this, how are you ever going to really succeed? Because, it's just not good enough. It can also manifest as not feeling lovable, not feeling lovable, not feeling worthy. You get something and you're just like, I didn't really deserve that, right? Oh, yeah, thank you. I will put that up there. My Facebook thing, it's in the chat. But not feeling worthy. If you have the feeling of, you're just not worthy. You get something, it's the old Woody Allen thing of, I would never join a group that would allow a guy like me as a member. If this is running in your program, it manifests itself in some of the things. You'll work for a prize, you get the prize, and then you automatically downplay it. I always self-share, sometimes too much, but I remember I got a major award from an organization. I wanted that award, right? And the year I got it at a conference, I was like, I'm like, I got this award, right? And I was driving my truck. I threw it in the back of my truck, and I damn near lost I lost the thing in the back of my truck for a while, right? So this thing that I said I wanted, this thing that I worked toward, I finally got it. And then it was like, basically, it's like it really can't be a real award because they gave it to me, right? That's one of these underlying things: not good enough, not lovable, not deserving. And again, if you don't get rid of these things, you can't put clean water in a dirty cup. And we went through a process last week, a little bit different of how you do EFT, of because a lot of people, when they try to do like, I can totally, completely forgive myself, even though I'm not successful. And they talk about success. It doesn't sink in because you can't put clean water in a dirty cup. So there's a process where you do the opposite, where you still say you totally, completely accept yourself, even though you have this block. But then you talk about whatever that block is. I am unlovable. I am unlovable. And you go down the process that way. And I always cross my hands to cross hemispheres of the brain. If you do it that way, people go, are you reinforcing the not lovable? No, it's kind of like in the NLP or the hypnosis world, there's a process, compulsion blowout, where you make it so huge, it eventually just blows itself up, right? So that's what we did last week, but I want to build on that, right? I need to build on that, right? So, and another problem with success in general, though, is your success, whatever it is, it's not clear or it's too vague, and again, it doesn't matter where you're going if you got no clear target, right? You got to have a good targeting system, as my friend Captain Billy would say. If not, good luck, and we can use the NLP SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, real goals, and are they testable, and if you do that, that kind of hones your goals in. And yes, you can have multiple goals, but you work on each goal separately. But let's just talk about success in general. And today we would talk about what I call the prime directive, right? And yes, I kind of stole it from Star Trek. And my dear friend, Joe Vitale, in one of his books, he turned me on to another book, and I went and read it. Much like him, I came to a lot of the same conclusions he did, right? And her name is Elise Lincoln Benedict, and the book is How to Unlock Your Subconscious Mind, published in 1921. She was the most successful self-help author in the 1920s. She was supposedly seen by, 2 to 4 million people. And this was in the 1920s, right? When you didn't have internet, radio was just getting started. So actually to be seen by that many people is pretty amazing. She actually eclipsed a guy named Billy Sunday, who you can look up. He was like, he's a fundamentalist, fiery preacher a lot of people liked, right? But in her book, How to Unlock Your Subconscious Mind, she was one of the first ones in the current world, if you will. You go back, you have some others, Wallace Wattles and that, but she kind of took it to the next level with whatever your conscious mind affirms, visualizes, and suggests to your subconscious, the subconscious will build into your life. If there's no blocks, I would add that, but that's kind of what she says, right? But what she stressed was that every human being gets their supreme subconscious wish, which again, so you say, I want this success, or I want this rockin' body, or this great relationship. If you say that's what you want, is that your supreme subconscious wish, right? Or is there something underneath it that if that is running, it's like a virus protection on your computer, whatever you're putting in will not get through that level. In hypnosis, we would call it critical factors of the mind, right? So let's repeat: your subconscious wish dictates your life, right? It's what you want most of all as a condition in your life, which you will get, right? It's never a specific thing or a person, but it's a condition, a certain avenue of expression, or I would say it's a feeling and a knowing that's driving you. And this becomes your prime directive, right? And those of us that are Star Trek fans, in the Star Trek universe, they talk about the prime directive of the Federation. Anyway, I'm not going to bore you with it, but it's that they will not interfere in the development of a planet or a species, right? If they contact a species and they don't want, they leave. They'll, even if they will destroy themselves, right? Especially in the newer Star Treks, right? And this is the prime directive that they start teaching people right when they go into Starfleet, right? So what's a prime directive? It's the directive that you're going to do no matter what. That even if other circumstances are out there, you have to back off and follow the prime directive. And for us, what I'm talking about, your subconscious wish, your prime directive, it's a feeling. As Neville Goddard said, feelings are the secret. You know, it's how you feel. And that's what we'll be working on. So if you have those feelings of unlovable, unworthy, undeserving, that's gonna, you know, you will push away everything. That becomes your prime directive. It will push things away, right? This helps you explain why you're attracting what you're attracting in your life, you know, because your subconscious deep down insists on it. And again, if you feel unworthy or undeserving, deep down, nothing will work. That's why we keep sabotaging yourself. And I'm always stressed this with our group here. Most of the people I know, the hypnotists, the neurolinguistic programmers, the psychologists, we have all these tools that should override it. And yet there's a lot of wounded people in our field, right? A person I'm getting to know, you know, he's a personal trainer, and you know, you see it in the personal physical world. Guys get in good shape, and then you run into them and they get out of shape, right? So even though they know what to do, are they doing it, right? And so that's why I'm driving this. So how does your prime directive sabotage you? You know, so like, do you want money but never get it, right? Do you want a good relationship but you seem to attract losers, right? You want fame but you never quite get there. You want a rockin' body, but every time you start getting in good shape, you get hurt, something kicks in, and you sabotage it, you know? So if you want health, but you always seem to be sick. So what's going on? You consciously want these things, but again, you subconsciously reject them, right? And I think this goes down to these feelings are a knowing is beyond words, right? It's not, you can't describe the undescribable, right? It's beyond your conscious logic. If they're beyond words, if it's a feeling, conscious logic cannot override it, right? And just had that experience last night talking to somebody about another topic, but it's like their consciousness they finally said, no, you don't even want to discuss it, right? So if you have these feelings, these knowings, these things beyond your consciousness, your conscious logic can never totally override it. And if it does, it'll give you limited success because you still have that prime directive and its subsets running underneath it, right? And this is the trap of logic and knowing, right? That's why a lot of us in this world, especially, someone does a hypnosis or an NLP technique, or you go to therapy and whoa, this is so freaking cool. And you stop smoking, lose weight, something cool happens in your life. You want to learn it, you start helping other people. Then suddenly some of these things underride your life, come to the surface again, and you need to get fixed. But the techniques don't work, even though you can take the technique and do it to Betty or Joe or So or Billy or whatever, and it works like magic for you. You know, you go to a conference and you're sitting there and somebody's doing a technique that you signed up for that seminar, that class for, and they start doing it. You're excited, but your first response is, why did they do that? I wouldn't have done that. I would have done this. Or you kick in with, oh, I need to remember this because I can use it for my client. You know, Billy could really use this, or whoever, right? And that's the trap. You know, I call it the paradox of knowledge, right? You can help other people with it, doesn't work with you. So what are some of your success about beliefs, or excuse me, yes, I speak for a living. What are your beliefs about success and money? And I'll use money, I'll just throw it in there, right? Again, Joe Vitale has a cool book on that. because it can be a measure of success or things like that. But a lot of our feelings about success are somewhat tied up into money and the things with it, you know? So what are some of these underlying things that start to reveal maybe what your prime directive is? You know, one of the big beliefs that people have that will stop them is it's selfish to want a lot of money or a lot of success or a lot of fame, right? They should just be happy with that, right? And how does that manifest? We're going to talk about that as this goes on, but it manifests with the offhand statements, no one's worth that kind of money. You know, you see an athlete sign a big contract or a movie star or whatever, or even in our field, somebody's making a lot, you know, nobody deserves that kind of success or money or fame, right? So, and then you'll justify it, whatever, right? So how do you know, is there a belief about that? Because if you have a belief about it, you know, that's what you'll attract, because that's going to be that, you know, so you'll never do that, you know. Or you have the success belief, money belief that success or money is not that important. There are more important things. That's true. You can always ask whenever you have these, is it true and is it useful, right? Some beliefs have a modicum of truth in it, but is it really useful? We could say, you know, money is not that important, but especially here in America, as opposed to many other countries, if you get sick, hopefully you got some resources, some insurance, some money, or something like that. It may not, so it can be partially true, but is it useful, right? So again, this will start underlying these things. So I want you to think about these things because you can begin to work on them. More success or more money or more fame equals more problems. You don't want to be that famous because then, you know, your whole life is an open book and they're going to, you know, everything will come out about you. Especially those of us in, you know, probably the age of 40 and above. We grew up in an era where, you know, certain things could destroy your career. Now, maybe not so much, but, you know, so more success or more fame, or it just brings more problems. You know, it just brings more problems, right? Somebody just shot me a text. I will look at it. Damn it. Let me see what it is. Oh, yeah. All right. Billy has some. Anyway, but, you know, more success equals more problems, more whatever. But I mean, again, is it true? And if so, is it really true, or are parts of it true? It may, you know, if part of your money and part of your success brings fame, it might bring some different problems, but are they manageable, right? For most people, not having money is the problem. If you have the money, it can fix a lot of your problems. You'll have a place to live. You'll have transportation. You'll have good food. Even if it's health, if you have money, you can afford the good food and the good care. So you get yada, yada, yada. So is it true for you? And again, the logic won't change it, but you'll feel something if these are true for you. Here's a big one I see, especially in our field, right? It's not spiritual to have success or fame or money. I was at a conference and we were talking about something, and somebody at the conference was very successful in their business world. And this person went, well, that's not for everybody. For me, it's a calling. And I went, really? And they're like, isn't it a calling for you? I said, not really. It's a goddamn business. I mean, I enjoy it. I love it. I like, but, you know, but they were using spirituality to justify not being successful, right? You know, it's kind of like, or they're a sellout, you know, because they sold out. You know, they brought books to the conference and they sold out all their books. Someone else said, yeah, but all their books, they're kind of like a sellout, you know. You hear it in the hypnosis world where people go, I don't do that kind of hypnosis. I do real hypnosis. I work on real problems, right? Not like weight loss or smoking. Whatever it is, right? And again, they're equating spirituality, which isn't real for that purpose. They're spiritual snobs and they're using it to justify not being successful, right? And maybe, again, these things were implanted when we're quite young. A big one, of course, is I don't deserve good things. You'll always go, you'll see something you really want, but you know what? Instead of getting you're buying a new car and you could get the, whatever, the LE model, if that's the top of the line. But if I get the one level down, that's good enough. So somehow I don't deserve good things, and there'll be a sliding scale in there, you'll get just enough, right? One on money specifically is, money doesn't grow on trees, right? Is that true? Is it useful, right? And it comes from a thinking of lack, right? And it's just one that's out there, right? A big one that you have people get, and it's easy to fall into, is it takes money or connections to make it. Now, is it true? There's a modicum of truth in that. If you have some money and connections already, it's probably going to help you make it. We're seeing the prodigy of successful actors become actors. So they have some connections, right? They have some connections. You can't argue with that. If your first agent is with the creative artist agency, that agency opens doors. Yeah. But do you really need it to get there? Right. So again, there may be some truth, but again, when you look at certain fields, once you start making money, getting success, the connections come. Right. And your blocks and beliefs are revealed in the feelings about these things, not just the thoughts, but the gut level responses. When you think about these things or meditate on them or contemplate them, whatever you're doing, what does it bring up? Because that's the things you need to work on if you want to change. Because again, it becomes that virus protection program that will reject, your success, your whatever it is that you say you're going for, right? So again, going back to these, it's like, so if you said something like, I want a really good relationship, but if underneath it, you think there's some value in martyrdom, being in an unhappy relationship and just sticking it out, these things start multiplying, right? And what a lot of this begins to point out is why the rich and royalty do so well, right? The royalty and or rich are they're raised without some of these kind of beliefs, right? It's just, it's not in their world, especially when they're first growing up. So they don't have the idea that brings more problems, or it's not okay to be rich and famous, or whatever it is. Again, I think last time I talked about how, Peyton Manning talked about the best thing that he had was growing up with his dad being a pro football player, was seeing that it was okay to be a pro football player. Patrick Mahomes, if you're into American football, his dad was a professional baseball player. And he said that was invaluable to him because he was raised with different thoughts and beliefs. And part of that is they feel they deserve success, money, and or power. It's just part of who they are, right? But your blocks, I didn't put in the S. Your blocks and beliefs are revealed in your feelings about these things, right? And the meaning you place on these things like success and power and money and that are the beliefs that brought them to you. And even if you're having negative things in your life, it's the meanings you place on them that brought it to you, right? A man I talk about a lot is Phineas Parkhurst Quimby. He was a watchmaker and a hypnotist in Boston, Massachusetts in the 1800s. He was the hypnotist for Mary Baker Eddy. He also had dealings with Ernest Holmes, who started Church of Mind Science. I think he also went out and the James and Myrtle Fillmore, who started the Unity Church. He's kind of like the grandfather of New Thought and hypnosis, right? And of course, Mary Baker Eddy, and Christian Science. But he taught a secret, and it works for some things, which is he taught that knowledge and truth will help you break free. And he dealt a lot with healing, and because this was the 1800s, people had very strong religious beliefs, even more, obviously more than they do now. And he had great success with people that were already very Christian, because he would point out that, you know, I'm trying to remember from the book I read, that, you know, Christ wants you to be healthy, and greater things than these shall ye do. And that, do you believe in this? Do you believe in the word? Yes, then you should be healthy. You know, it's not, you're not following God's plan if you're sick. And people had all these miraculous recoveries, right? And then again, like Mary Baker Eddy went down one path, Ernest Holmes went down another, the Fillmores went down another. But it was the idea that I think works to a certain extent, but it depends on these deep subconscious beliefs, right? So this week, what we want to work on is, let's say you want something in your life. What is your first unedited, non-politically correct, right? Let me stress that. Unedited, non-politically correct, right? To people who have what you want, right? What's your first unedited thing? And because you want to begin to go back and look at all of these things, right? Because it's like peeling an onion, you know, you may not, you know, I started last week with basically the big one, feeling unlovable, unworthy, undeserving, right? Oh yeah, she pointed out, like for the royalty and rich, they have different role models, right? So again, when you look, let me go back, excuse me. When you get into these things, you know, you know, if you want money or a certain level of success, when you see somebody with it, what's your first response? You know, they're lucky, they were blessed, it's not fair, wah, right? Call the ambulance, wah. So whatever it is, right? So again, when you look at these, when they come up, just challenge them. Are they true? And if so, is there levels of truth? Maybe they were taught to you, because what happens is I love the term, we mislearn things when we were growing up. You know, before the age of, I don't know, they say like 7 or so, but you know, maybe 9 or 10, whatever the age, you don't have the critical factor. So stuff just gets stuffed into your head and you take them as true, right? And there may be modicums of truth, right? But when you look at them and challenge them, again, are they true? And if so, is the whole thing true, or is it partially true, right? Money isn't, you know, money isn't everything. That's true. But you can't say it's nothing, right? You know, can money buy happiness? It depends if you know where to shop. Tough crowd on here on Thursday. But the biggest one, is it useful? Maybe it was useful at one point in time. Maybe it's not useful now. A lot of these things were taught to us to keep us in line. Don't be wasteful. Don't be, you know, whatever. Be a hard worker. Be industrious, which are good things that maybe the parents and the teachers and the authority figures taught us. But is it now becoming counterproductive? You know, because the last thing you want, and let's say money and success is what you want. You want to be, you know, the richest, most successful person in the graveyard at 50. I don't think so, right? And, you know, you can use a lot of these when you go back to what is your first gut level response when you see somebody that has huge success, right? One thing to look at it, and could you get that success, is that person 1,000 times smarter than you? Does that person work 1,000 times harder than you? You know, are they 1,000 times just about anything than you, right? No, there may be some truths in there, right? But we want to unlearn things, basically, is what it is, because we mislearn things growing up. Oops. So this week, we're keeping it short, is again, I want you to look at some of these beliefs, right? Which again, the underlying one may be I call it the crime of existence, the crime of being, right? And another way it manifests itself is, and it really came up in this pandemic, where people were locked down, is, can you just be? I got to be doing something, you know? So people redid their house, or they redid this, or they redid that. They took 400 classes. And not staying busy is good, but can you just be, right? What happens when you get a windfall profit, right? The other day, I was talking to somebody, and they were complaining, excuse me, about a couple people they knew that were collecting unemployment under this, what's going on here in America. And they're like, that's just not right. And I'm like, well, what's not right about it? They didn't, I was trying to use this logic. I'm like, well, they shouldn't, whatever. They never made that much money a week. I'm like, okay, but did they write the rule? No. Did they implement the rule? No. They're just taking advantage of the rule. That's the problem. So doing it by the rules, I tried, but this person, from talking to them, it became apparent they had this idea that you have to do shit you don't like, and you got to work real hard or you shouldn't be able to eat. Right? And I'm like, well, God love you. I choose not to think that way. Right? But that's what I mean. These things start bubbling up when you see it out there in the world, so I want you to think about these and kind of start to challenge them. Is it useful? Is it true? Does it serve me? You don't really have to worry about where they came from. Could be your mother, your father, teachers, authority figures. Who knows? Some of these things can get put in your head quick, because a good example of that is, depending on your age, if you were an adolescent or even a little kid in the 70s, and you saw the movie Jaws in the movie theater, whatever that is, 50 years later, when you hear dun 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 dun, it brings up all this stuff. And even though intellectually, I used to get at least a couple of people a year when I had my practice in the Chicagoland area that had a fear of water, because they'd be going to the beach or getting on a boat, Lake Michigan, or one of the small lakes in the Midwest, because they were terrified of sharks. And the one person said, and I know it's crazy because there's no sharks in Lake Michigan or up here. It's like, but they freak out, right? And it was installed, and they were in a highly charged emotional state. It was terrifying. It became a belief. It became one of these prime directives, and maybe you have multiple prime directives. And it was basically, and I said, well, thank your subconscious mind, because it's just trying to keep your butt safe, right? It doesn't want you to get eaten by a shark, right? So maybe you don't want to go like diving off the Great Barrier Reef, but I'm pretty sure Lake Michigan and the Great Lakes and these small lakes here are fine. Anyway, so you want to challenge these. Is it useful? Is it true? Does it serve me? Right? And if not, challenge it, right? And then you can do the tapping. I totally and completely accept myself, even though, I think it's selfish to want a lot of money or success, whatever you're working on. And if you do that, and then you do the tapping technique of, selfish to want money or success, selfish to want money or success, selfish to want money or success. And then I cross my hands when I do it. Selfish to want money or success, selfish to want money or success. And I'm not doing the opposite. I'm kind of trying to do a energy blowout of it and then tap on the side of the eyes, selfish to want money or success, selfish to want money or success, selfish to want money or success. And I just do the EFT thing. You can look that up and go down the system and then do the collarbone parts, right? And then under the armpit, or where the bra strap would be on a woman, and just keep repeating, that you think it's selfish to want money or success, because you're kind of trying to blow the energy out. And you do this part, look it up. I don't want to do a whole thing on EFT, but if you practice it, right? And then tap. I always do both hands, move my eyes. And then something I've learned from someone that they recently passed on, they were real big in EFT. They said, whenever you're out and about, and let's say one of these things pop up that you're working on, and you don't want to go through the whole, Macarena kind of thing, right? You could just tap on your heart and just think about the thing that you're working on, right? The thalamus, whatever, the heart. And so you imagine you're clearing out this energy, right? And so I just wanted to do that this week. I think it's fascinating. So your homework assignment this week is look at some of these, right? Do any of these resonate with you? Do they bring something up? And when you think about it, and again, when you see someone that has what you want, what's your first response? Oh, Dr. Bermonte says Robert Smith has faster EFT. Yeah, check that out. To date myself, ladies and gentlemen, I actually learned this from when it was thought field therapy and Dr. Callahan. Oh my gosh, I'm dating myself, right? Uh, there's a lot of jokes I could go down that path. Anyway, that's it for this week. Stay on. We'll talk afterwards. I just want to stop the recording because I'm very respectful of everybody's time, especially on the weekend. Um, uh, Give me feedback. This will be posted in the butterfly experiment on Facebook. Make sure you drop in there, give feedback and ideas. And I'll see you next week. And I'll put out another thing on what we're doing next week. We're going to have more fun and start working on some specific things. Until next time, I'll see you as we trudge the road to happy destiny.